Hi, I'm Alister Chapman and I'm here at Visual Impact, where I've just done a webinar on the FS7 II. So not this camera here, this is an FS7, but the FS7 II. And something that I'm actually quite passionate about is making sure that people don't become too focused on cameras. I do a lot of workshops and seminars and presentations, and the thing that we always end up talking about, and if you go online to all the various bloggers and everything, the most talked about thing, of course, is the camera. And everyone becomes really focused and almost obsessed by the camera. And this becomes a problem, especially with people that are investing in a camera kit for the very first time, because they'll often save up every single penny that they've got and spend all of their money on the camera and not leave anything for the accessories that go with it. And one accessory in particular that goes with the camera that is really vital is, of course, the tripod. Now, right here we have a nice FSB 10 tripod from Sachtler, very nice, very well-made tripod. And it has to be said that this is not a cheap item. So this particular tripod is about £2,500. Now, you can, of course, buy tripods for much, much less than that. There is a particular Italian brand that I'm sure most of you know who I'm thinking of, that do a tripod that has a similar, perhaps, look in terms of its size and scale and everything else to this tripod, and that's only going to cost you about £500. But let me tell you, if you buy that £500 tripod, you really are very close to wasting your money entirely. It will not give you the smooth movement that a tripod like this gives you. It's not going to give you the precise counterbalance and things like that that a tripod like this will give you. And another important thing is it won't last like a tripod like this will. As a point in case, actually, I was on a shoot recently and we had some of those Italian tripods, and it was a particularly cold morning. And because the weather was cold and the tripod was made out of some very cheap plastics, the locks on the legs wouldn't lock. We couldn't actually get the tripods to stay up. They kept sagging down. So if you buy the right tripod from day one, and you spend the money on a decent tripod, it's actually a really good investment. Many, many years ago when I first started, I bought a tripod. I spent, I think it was around about £1,500 at that time. It was a huge sum of money for me when I just started out. That particular tripod lasted me for nearly 15 years. I only fairly recently actually sold it, and I was able to sell it second-hand for a reasonable price. So buy a good tripod, a decent tripod, a well-made, solidly built tripod from day one, and it's going to last you for many, many years. It will certainly outlast your camera. You become focused on spending all your money on a camera like this, very nice camera, the FS7, but how long is that going to last you? This day and age, you're lucky if you get 3 or 4 years out of the camera before you have to replace it. So you're constantly spending large sums of money on the camera. But buy the right tripod, and that tripod will last you 5, 10, 15, maybe even 20 years. So it is a really good investment. And yes, you do need to spend a reasonable amount of money to get a good quality tripod that is going to last. Let's just take a quick look at the FSB 10 here. So you have the adjustable leveling bowl, so we can get our camera nice and level, and that really is a vital aspect of any tripod for a video camera. If you don't have a leveling bowl and that head isn't level, when you pan, the horizon tilts. So really important that you have a leveling bowl. We have various adjustments on the tripod. So we have 6 settings of damping for the pan and tilt. So that's 0 through 5, going from none at all to being quite a lot of damping. And it's on a click-stop adjuster on the Sachtlers. They have a click-stop system. And the other adjustment that we have here, this is for the counterbalance, and this helps keep the camera stable when it's tilted off-center. So one of the things that a lot of people actually get wrong with tripods is how they set the tripod up. I'm just going to quickly run through how I like to balance my tripod when I get started. So first thing first, you have a leveling bubble here, and we have that ball head. So first of all, get the tripod level. There's no point in trying to set all the settings unless the tripod is level. Then I bring my counterbalance and my damping for tilt down to their minimum settings. So we have no damping here, because the first thing that I want to set is what I would call my static balance. So I want the camera to be balanced on the head, so when the head is level, it doesn't fall forwards and it doesn't fall backwards. And right now it's pretty close. When it's level, I can let go of it and it will stay there. That's a pretty good starting point for my static balance. So the next thing you want to do is to set the correct amount of counterbalance. The counterbalance counteracts the tendency for the camera to fall forwards and backwards. So if I put in the first, in fact I'm going to put in 5, I'm going to go to the middle setting here. So I'm on the middle setting. When I tilt the camera forwards, what's happening? It's actually springing back to the middle. So I have too much counterbalance, so I'm going to reduce that to 4. Still too much. If I go down to 1, there's not enough. So let's try 2. And actually 2. In fact, what you can see actually is my static balance isn't quite right. I should probably actually just bring the camera back very slightly on the head. But 2, and try 3. Somewhere between 2 and 3 would be perfect. I'm going to go with 2 because it is counteracting the tendency of the camera to fall forwards and backwards. That's fine. And now I have my balance set up. I can now introduce my drag. And it basically means with a little bit of drag and that counterbalance set, the camera doesn't tilt forwards on its own, doesn't tilt backwards on its own, it stays where I left it. So that does mean that if I was to wander off from the tripod and not do up the lock, the camera's going to sit where I left it. And that's how you set up your drag and counterbalance. So drag really is a sort of personal choice. How much resistance do you want? One of the things I used to do a lot of is filming motor racing, and one of the things I found with that is, and it's actually a bit counterintuitive, is if you're trying to shoot something that's moving very quickly, is to actually use a lot of drag. So you have the maximum drag, and the reason for doing that is actually gives you something to work to, because if you want to change the speed that you're moving the camera at, so if I want to start off slowly and then maybe go quickly, having more drag helps me start to slow down and speed up more easily than having less drag. That's something sort of you learn through practice really. But coming back to the basic thing of invest now, invest wisely. If you're going to buy a good camera, do buy a tripod that's appropriate for that camera. Make sure that the camera has a payload capability typically of around about 2 times the weight of the camera. Because you have to remember the payload capability of a tripod is calculated for a point just above the head, but these days we'll often have monitors and other stuff up here, and that significantly increases the load on the tripod. So when you're looking at payloads, at least 2 times the weight of the camera. Don't just get a payload that is the weight of the camera. You're going to find very quickly that that's not enough. And it's going to last you many, many years. It would be actually probably a better investment in terms of return on that investment than the camera itself. So buy once, buy wisely, buy the right one.